Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's segment of Current Affairs 365 dated 21st of September 2021 only on Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. Current Affairs 365 is your one-stop solution for any news and updates which will help you prepare not just for your civil services examination, but also this is going to be helpful for any other Assam state government services. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram for any further details related to current affairs and also related to government services. So now coming to the first news of today, which has been sourced from PIB. This is regarding the connectivity projects related to India and Southeast Asian nations. This news will be tagged under GS paper 2 under the subtopics of bilateral groupings and agreements. It also is related to international relations, and regional groupings. So recently in a virtual ASEAN summit on future of India-ASEAN connectivity partnerships, Indian government has underlined the importance of cross-border connectivity between India and the Southeast Asian nations. ASEAN, that is Association of Southeast Asian Nations, it brings together 10 Southeast Asian states into one organization, which are Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. India currently is working with ASEAN on multiple connectivity projects through air, water and land. Giving substance to this through connectivity, it will gradually change the geopolitical scenario of the entire region. And India has now also been actively developing infrastructure in the northeastern part of the country regarding this context. The Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar corridor is a part of this initiative. BCIM is a 2,800 kilometer long corridor which proposes to link the Kunming part of China's Yunnan province with Kolkata, passing through nodes like Mandalay in Myanmar and Dhaka in Bangladesh before heading in towards Kolkata. These connectivity projects will not only curb the existing insurgencies in the region, but is also going to help India's northeastern states to develop their economic potential and integrate with the mainland part of the country. Further, India-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement is also central to India's growing engagement with her eastern neighbors. It will enable small and medium-sized enterprises in the border areas to explore new business opportunities. Some other examples of cross-connectivity projects includes the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway. This is one of the flagship projects for land connectivity between ASEAN and India, connecting the three important countries from Moreh in India to Mae Sot in Thailand and Bagan in Myanmar. This was the first. This project was first proposed in the year 2002. Besides this, the India, Myanmar and Thailand motor vehicle agreement is also in its final stage, and after realization, this is going to be the first ever cross-border facilitation agreement between South and Southeast Asia. Next important project is the Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. In order to develop connectivity through water, ASEAN and India are working on this particular initiative. This proposal was made by Indian government and is also being entirely funded by India. Indian government initiated this project in the year 2008, and this mainly seeks an alternative route through Myanmar for the transportation of goods to the northeastern part of our country. It connects Kolkata in India to Sitwe and Palitwa in Myanmar by sea and river respectively. Alongside this initiative, India has also been contributing to build a sea link via the Sitwe port in Myanmar in order to enable an alternative transit route through Bangladesh. The third project is Mekong India Economic Corridor. It involves integration of 4 countries, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand and Cambodia along with India. This corridor will provide opportunities for the participant countries to develop their infrastructure, enhance their economic base with the region and to reduce the transit distance between India and ASEAN countries specifically. The trilateral highway can also be extended here in the region towards the regions like Cambodia, Laos and Vietnam, which will enable greater connectivity and economic integration of India's northeastern part with its eastern neighbors. Along with that, beyond movement of goods and services, any physical connectivity, it is also important for the two regions to explore ways to enhance digital connectivity. And this is in concurrence with the Government of India's effort to turn India into a global data hub. And thirdly, lastly, another way forward is that with the Sagarmala project, India is planning to invest in port infrastructure for improved integration and connectivity through the sea. This is quite an encouraging step towards achieving India-ASEAN connectivity projects. Now, the next news is concerning biodiversity and environment. It will be tagged under GS paper 3 under the subtopics health, environmental pollution and degradation, arsenic contamination on food chain. A recent study has found that arsenic contamination is now not just limited to groundwater, but it has also penetrated well into our food chains. The research study was a part of a project named Project Nature and Nurture in Arsenic Induced Toxicity of Bihar State, which is jointly funded by the British Council in the United Kingdom and the Department of Science and Technology, India. Major findings of this study includes the increase in concentration of arsenic. It has found its way into the food chain mainly through rice, wheat and potato. Arsenic contamination in groundwater has been a growing concern in several parts of our country, and it is present in the groundwater as it is used on a large scale for irrigation by farmers. That is how it has found its way into the food chain as well. The food had more arsenic content than drinking water, even when arsenic levels in the drinking water was above the provisional guide value of WHO, that is 10 micrograms per liter. This concentration was found to be higher in cooked rice compared to the raw rice. Coming to arsenic, we all know it is a metalloid which is odorless and tasteless and is widely distributed on the Earth's crust. This arsenic is naturally present at high levels in the Earth's crust and groundwater in a number of countries. It is highly toxic in its inorganic form. Arsenic can get into our body through drinking water as well as through food, and it has led to contamination of our body with arsenic. Arsenicosis is the medical term for arsenic poisoning, which occurs due to accumulation of significant amounts of arsenic in our body. It leads to adverse health effects through inhibition of essential enzymes, which ultimately leads to death from multisystem organ failure. Long-term exposure can also cause cancer and skin lesions. It has also been associated with cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. Under the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the indicator of safely managed drinking water services calls for tracking the population which is accessing drinking water free from fecal contamination and priority chemical contaminants. This also includes arsenic. The Jal Jeevan Mission is envisioned to provide safe and adequate drinking water through to individual household tap connections by the year 2024. Recently, the Jal Jeevan Urban was also launched, and there is an urgent need to monitor the irrigation water quality along with the drinking water. The remedial measures in order to control the increase in concentrations of arsenic in both your drinking water as well as in the food chain, it includes variety of options which ranges from removing arsenic from groundwater after it is extracted, then searching alternative aquifers, reducing the level within the aquifer itself, dilution of contaminants by artificial recharge, blending with potable water, etc. The next news is tagged under GS paper 3 concerning infrastructure, growth and development and environmental pollution and degradation. It is about the Shunya campaign by NITI Aayog and Rocky Mountain Institute. They have jointly launched this Shunya campaign, and it is an initiative to promote zero pollution delivery vehicles by working with the consumers and the related industry. RMI, the Rocky Mountain Institute, is an independent non-profit organization which was founded in the year 1982. Shunya campaign is a campaign which aims to accelerate the adoption of EVs, electric vehicles, in the urban deliveries segment and to create consumer awareness about the benefits of zero pollution delivery. A corporate branding and certification program is also being launched in order to recognize and promote industry's efforts towards transitioning to the EVs for final mile deliveries. An online tracking platform will share the campaign's impact through data such as vehicle kilometers electrified, carbon savings, criteria pollutant savings, etc. Now, why there is a need to shift towards the EVs for the final mile deliveries? First is because of the growing e-commerce market. Between the years 2013 and 17, India's online retail market grew at an average of around 53% each year, and this is expected that it is going to become a $150 billion market by the end of the year 2022. So by shifting the end transportation of goods from the consumer, this has dramatically expanded the fleets of delivery vehicles. Second is reduce in emissions. Urban freight vehicles, it accounts for 10% of freight transportation related to carbon dioxide in our country, and these emissions are expected to grow by around 114% by the year 2030. EVs, they do not emit any tailpipe emissions, which can contribute immensely towards improving the air quality, and even when accounting for their manufacture, they emit only 15 to 40% lesser carbon dioxide compared to their internal combustion engine counterparts, and also they have a lower operational cost. Moreover, shifting towards EVs will help India to reduce the oil dependency, which will solve the challenge of energy scarcity of our country and will help our country to move towards renewable and cleaner sources of energy. However, this shift will have to face certain challenges because India is not very technologically sound. When it comes to production of electronics, which forms the backbone of the EV industry, like batteries, semiconductors, controllers, etc., India is technically deficient in this particular segment. We also lack the clarity over AC versus DC charging stations, grid stability and range anxiety, that is fear that the batteries will run out of power soon. Third is availability of materials for domestic production. There is no known reserves of lithium and cobalt which are required for battery production. India is entirely dependent on countries like Japan and China for their import of lithium ion batteries. EVs also have higher servicing costs, and higher levels of skill is required for this particular servicing. India lacks dedicated training courses for such skill development. However, our country has also taken some initiatives in order to facilitate this particular shift. First is the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan. It was launched in 2013, and the main aim was to achieve national fuel security by promoting hybrid and electric vehicles in our country. Then the FAME scheme, Indian government has created momentum through the faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles scheme, which encourages and in some segments also mandates the adoption of EVs with a goal of reaching 30% EV penetration by 2030 into the market. Moving ahead to the next news, it is regarding the G20 Agriculture Meet of 2021. This particular news will be tagged under both GS Paper 2 as well as GS Paper 3 under the subtopics of bilateral groupings and agreements, growth and development, and government policies and interventions. Recently, India's Agriculture Minister addressed the G20 Agriculture meeting virtually. It is one of the ministerial meetings which has been organized as a part of the G20 Leaders Summit of 2021. Italy is going to host this summit in October 2021. G20 is an informal group of 19 countries along with the European Union, and it has also representatives from International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. This union, this organization, it doesn't have a permanent secretariat or headquarters. The membership comprises a mix of the world's largest advanced and emerging economies, representing about 2/3 of the world's population. Coming to the highlights of this meet, here the final statement of the charter named Florence Sustainability Charter was signed. This is going to strengthen cooperation between the G20 members and the developing countries on food and agriculture in order to share knowledge and help developing the internal production capacities which are best suited towards the local needs. Thus, it is going to contribute to the resilience and recovery of agriculture and the rural communities. This meeting also reaffirmed the intention of global members to reach towards the goal of zero hunger, which was also threatened by the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic. Then the commitment to achieve food security in the framework of 3 dimensions of sustainability, which are economic, social and environment, was also reaffirmed in this particular meeting. Now coming to the India's stand, India mainly focused on the importance of traditional food. Okay, so India emphasized on reintroducing traditional food items which included millet, other nutritious cereals, fruits and vegetables, fish, dairy and organic products in the diet of the population. Their production has been phenomenal in our country in recent years, and India is becoming a destination country for healthy food items. Along with that, the United Nations has also accepted India's proposal and has declared 2023 as the International Year of Millets. Along with that, United Nations has also urged the G20 members to support the celebration of the Millet Year, that is 2023, to promote nutrition and sustainable agriculture worldwide. Next point which was highlighted by the Indian minister was on about biofortified food. These varieties are rich source of in a staple diet, okay, including micronutrients, and they are being promoted to mainly remove malnutrition. About 17 varieties of different crops have already been developed and released for cultivation in our country. India has also taken steps to increase the optimal use of water resources, to create infrastructure for irrigation, conserve soil fertility with a balanced use of fertilizers, and India is also providing connectivity to the farms, from the farms to the market when it comes to water resources. Next is India's agri sector in COVID. Indian agriculture has achieved a great success after country's independence, and the agriculture sector has remained unaffected even during the COVID-19 pandemic. It has managed to survive this pandemic as well. So India is going to continue work together to achieve the poverty reduction, to work towards poverty reduction and zero hunger goal as a part of its sustainable development goals. India will also cooperate in research and development as well as towards exchange of best practices to enhance productivity. Some related initiatives, Indian initiatives, includes the per drop more crop scheme for irrigation and the Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana for organic farming, which is being implemented successfully. Next is the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. It is being implemented in order to provide insurance cover towards the farmers. Then India is also addressing malnutrition problem. By doing so, India is running the world's largest food-based safety net program, which includes the public distribution system and the midday meal scheme. Government is also providing an annual income support of rupees 6,000 under the PM Kisan Yojana, that is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. And this was all for today. I hope this session was helpful for you all. Don't forget to click on the like button and hit the bell icon to get notified each time we post a new video. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another segment of Current Affairs 365 only on Port Harcourt's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and MPSC preparations. Till then, take good care of yourselves and keep learning. Bye-bye.
Port Harcourt IAS Academy. প্রস্তুতি আর অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা।
Port Harcourt IAS Academy